Welcome everybody to FanStream Sports powered by DSP Media. This is the Friday Night Day Blitz, and I'm your host, Rob Fedoff, also known as RPT. You can find me on X at PFedoff. This is episode 125 of First Things First. Head over to our website at fanstreamsports.com for all additional podcast information. If you have an Apple device or an Android device, please feel free to download the FanStream Sports app. Then head over to our Facebook page. Like that page, additional content out there as well. Please feel free to share that with your friends and family. This will be the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl recap. And what a day for Notre Dame football, fans, players, you name it. Notre Dame wins in a dominating performance both offensively and defensively, 40-8 over Oregon State. That's the largest victory margin for any Notre Dame football team throughout their storied history. Largest bowl victory ever. I can't say it ever. 32 points. Notre Dame has never won by that amount of points throughout their storied history. But some initial observations about this game. Isn't it great to have CBS do a game for Notre Dame? I believe, do not quote me on this, but I'm 99.9% sure this is the first game that CBS had for Notre Dame since 2018. I believe that was a nighttime game against Navy in San Diego. I looked over the schedule this week, and I couldn't find a game that CBS would have broadcast. But I can't say enough. I always say their sound is better. Their announcers are better. Now, granted, they did shank some names today, but I'll forgive them for that. As a last name is Fedoff, it's been mispronounced so many times. I kind of heard that for some of the Notre Dame players today. But as I said earlier, I'll forgive that for CBS. And I just can't say enough. As a kid in the 80s, I would watch Notre Dame, whether it was a home game or away game. And up until when NBC got the home contract in 1991, I just always loved it when CBS did a Notre Dame game. I just can't say enough. The sound quality, the announcers, you name it, just so much better. Kudos to CBS for doing a solid job today. And it also seemed, even though this was a sub-tier bowl game, let's face it, it was sold out today. And with that great coverage that CBS had today, it felt bigger than what it actually was. You could hear the crowd. You could sense the excitement. It sounded like there was mostly Notre Dame fans there, but kudos to CBS. I can't say it enough. Sam Hartman was on the sidelines. We knew that was going to be the case. Steve Angeli would be the quarterback. He's mentored Steve throughout the season. He's done a great job. His leadership is, I can't say enough, second to none for Notre Dame. He's really, even though we knew he wasn't going to play in this game, and before that, throughout the season, he's been a great leader for Notre Dame. Just a great, even though he's only been at Notre Dame for 1 year, and that'll be it, great ambassador for Notre Dame. But he was in the sunglasses on the sidelines, and it looked like he could either be a CIA agent or auditioning for the Broadway play to Jesus Christ Superstar. Either way, I think Sam Hartman could do it. He definitely has that look. Or he's Tom Selleck's long-lost son that he never knew he had. What other initial observations I had? Also today, you saw that Notre Dame has a lot of depth. You're going to hear, oh, Notre Dame won today by 32 points, but Oregon State didn't have their full deck. That's the case. They didn't have their coach. He's at Michigan State now. DJ Uiagalelei, he opted out. Or I didn't opt out. He's now in the transfer portal again. I don't even know where he signed. But anyway, well, Notre Dame had the same issue. However, we had the depth to combat the transfer portal, guys sitting out for the NFL. And you're starting to see now, even though I've been a big critic, not just me, but other people as well, of Marcus Freeman for the results so far at Notre Dame. It's not college football playoff yet or competing for a national title. You're starting to see with his solid recruiting that he's had, the depth is there now. You saw, despite all the people that were not playing today, Notre Dame is still very talented, whether it's the second string or even some third string players or just players that played this year but not full time. You're seeing that right now. In 2018, when Notre Dame competed in the college football playoff, for the first time. They also competed in 2020. But in that Clemson game, it was a pretty close game, but then Julian Love, very talented cornerback at the time, gets hurt. We did not have the cornerback depth at the time. Trevor Lawrence goes off. And before you know it, we lose. It was either 30-3 or 33-3. Now, granted, too, we did not have a great quarterback to lead us to the so-called promised land. Ian Book, yes, he was a solid quarterback at Notre Dame, but not a superstar. However, I think that game would have been closer had we had the depth back in 2018. But initial observation, too, you probably saw today, we do have that depth, and that's going to propel us, to me, hopefully for a successful 2024. Also today, to finish 10-3, I know that's not the ultimate goal. Now with the 12-team playoff, it's either make the playoffs or bust for me. You cannot miss the playoffs anymore since it's a 12-team field. 9-4 sounds a lot better than 10-3, and that can propel you for a 2024 successful season. A lot of positives for a 10-3 instead of a 9-4. So now let's look at the dominating stats that Notre Dame had today on both sides of the ball. 24 first downs to 10 for Oregon State. Total yards, 468 Notre Dame, 197 Oregon State. Passing, 232 to 195 Oregon State. A lot of that for Oregon State passing was on the last two drives. And let's face it, if Notre Dame doesn't have its third string defense in, this is probably a shutout today for Notre Dame. But it is what it is. I feel pretty confident to say if the third string defense isn't in at the end of the game, Notre Dame shuts out Oregon State. Rushing, listen to this. 236 Notre Dame, 2 rushing yards for Oregon State. Great job by the defense today, as they have been pretty much throughout the season, the defense. It's been the strong point, or the strong area of this team, I should say. Time of possession, 40 minutes for Notre Dame, only 20 for Oregon State. And even though it was pretty much just a 7-0 lead throughout most of the first half, we ended up going up 14-0 at halftime, but you felt like Notre Dame should be up by a lot more. But I kept thinking, yes, we should be up by more than 14 points. But if anything, since the margin is 2-1 in time of possession, even by the first half, Notre Dame is eventually going to wear down Oregon State. We didn't have to wear them down. We even just played a better second half in all facets of the game. And if you look at the individual stats here, and this was the only thing that kind of I thought Steve Angeli would have been the MVP of the game. No, it was Jordan Faison, who had a great game. And Jordan Faison, initially, I think he had a lacrosse scholarship, and he was a walk-on or preferred walk-on at Notre Dame. He ended up getting a full scholarship for the football program. And I think he's still going to play lacrosse as well. But true freshman, and I can't say enough, he kind of reminds me like a Wes Welker type receiver. But he was 5 receptions, 115 yards, average of 23 yards per reception today for 1 touchdown, pass from Steve Angeli. But if you look at Steve Angeli, who many say at best he will just be a backup quarterback at Notre Dame. Even if that, I will take him as a backup quarterback. I've said this in prior podcasts. If he's our Frank Reich for Riley Leonard next year, that's a hell of a backup quarterback. Frank Reich was a backup to Jim Kelly for the Buffalo Bills back in the 90s. Great backup quarterback, and led the greatest comeback in playoff history in the NFL. I'm just hoping Steve Angeli stays. He could. I think he will. To me, he still probably has about 1.5 years to graduate, if not less. Once you graduate, Steve, I can see you transferring out, and I get that, to be a starter somewhere, but come back one more year. He's an injury away from being the starting quarterback at Notre Dame, in my opinion. I hope the coaching staff agrees with me. But Steve Angeli, 15 out of 19, 232 yards. His average completion was 12.2 yards. That's pretty damn good. 3 touchdowns. Here's the key. No interceptions. He did fumble the ball, but that was an effort play. It was I think it was like a 2nd and 13 yards, or 2nd and 13. And we were backed up inside the 5-yard line. It was pretty much a quarterback draw. And he did not run the ball until today. And he was trying to get the first down, and he leaped over the defender, took a pretty good shot, fumbled the ball. You can't let that happen, but at least that was an effort play that he did make a mistake there. The only other mistake he made as well, he did have 2 delay of games, but other than that, he pretty much played a flawless game, in my opinion. Rushing, Jadarian Price, 13 carries, 106 yards, a touchdown as well. Jeremiah Love, 15 carries for 39 yards. You kept thinking without Aldrich Estime, the running game would suffer today. No, we still had that 5-headed monster, now 4-headed monster in that running back room, and you just see that depth. I can't say enough. Notre Dame now has the depth, if there's a key injury, that they can compete for a national title or a college football playoff berth. Besides Jordan Faison, I mentioned his stats before, 5 for 115, 1 TD. Jaden Thomas, 4 receptions, 59 yards for 1 touchdown. It was great to see him back in action today. He had a hamstring injury late in the season where I think he missed 4 games. I remember going to that 2022 spring game and saying, hey, this guy's got some talent and he just needs to see some field action. And the more he plays, you're going to see how talented he is. The same with Steve Angeli. Again, going back to the 2022 spring game, when he was a early enrollee freshman at Notre Dame, and he led them to the go-ahead touchdown. I don't know if it was the blue team or the gold team, but it's just kind of eerily similar for both those two players that kind of started at that spring game, and hopefully it continues for the both of them. What else today? Defense, what can I say? They had, let's see here, 4 sacks, 8 tackles for losses. Jordan Patello, he was actually the lineman. I didn't know there was such a thing, MVP lineman for the game. He had 5 tackles. It looked like he hurt his shoulder, but he was, when he was holding up the MVP trophy, it looked like the shoulder was fine. And that's great to see. He's probably going to be back next year. And he's kind of been a kid where he just hasn't, how can I say this? Just hasn't had his head on straight his entire 4 years, except for this last year. He's pretty much had his head on straight, no off the field issues, but I can't say that. It just looks like he's totally locked in now, and hopefully he has a great 5th-year season next year because I believe he will be back for Notre Dame. But it's great to see that he's been, like I said, struggling with some issues on and off the field, but now seems to be locked in to finish his career at Notre Dame very successfully. What else here? That's about it. Spencer Schrader, this was kind of a weird thing. He was the MVP for the special teams. And I was just like, but he missed another field goal. But with special teams, it's probably either the kicker or someone, if they ran a kickback or a punt return back for a touchdown. We did not have that today. So there really wasn't much left to choose from for Notre Dame. So having said that, my last talking point for the day, 2024. What is this propel us for 2024? Obviously, to win a bowl game. Even though this wasn't the greatest bowl game to win, you still want it. And you want it in dominating fashion without some of your big guns, Audric Estime, pretty much a manufactured offensive line today, a true freshman at left tackle in Charles Jagasaw. The guy's huge. The future is bright for Notre Dame if we just, stay the course, as I should say, where no major injuries, even though we do have that depth, as I said before. And this quarterback, I know Riley Leonard is probably going to be the starter next year, but if Steve Angeli stays, this is going to be a very, I hate to use the word interesting because people always say interesting to see. Many things are interesting to see. I want to say very intriguing 2024 spring ball for Notre Dame, especially if Steve Angeli is still there. And I still think he will be. You still have, Steve, you only have a year and maybe a semester to go before you graduate because he was an early enrollee at Notre Dame. You're only an injury away from being the starter at Notre Dame. And weirder things have happened. What else? Marcus Freeman. It was said after the game, he has now tied Charlie Weis for the most amount of wins for your first 2 years as a Notre Dame coach. And I know I've been a big critic this year, especially because this is year 2. I gave him a mulligan last year. But that's something to say. I know Charlie Weis, it didn't end up being, after his first 2 years, it was pretty much mediocrity at best at Notre Dame, but not defensively. His defenses were atrociously bad at Notre Dame, even though he did recruit and get Manti Te'o, but that was it. The thing is, Marcus Freeman is selling Notre Dame pretty damn good right now in recruiting. And I think today, especially that last drive in the first half, the clock was slowly winding down. We still had 3 timeouts left, but you could tell Marcus Freeman kind of was under control with that drive. He's like, I got faith in Steve Angeli right now. If we got to use our timeouts, we will, but we're going to milk this clock. So Oregon State doesn't have much chance to score at the end of the half. And I just thought that last drive at the end of the first half, Marcus Freeman was really relaxed but locked in. And that comes with the experience of being a head coach. I'm not saying he's going to be New Rockne. I think we're still slowly starting to see maybe he's coming into his own as a head coach. He's still a really young guy. He's only 38, I believe. And who knows? Maybe next year we still see 8-4, 9-3 again. But the way this season ended and the way the recruiting is going right now, don't count Marcus Freeman out. I'm still going to be pretty damn hard on him next year because if he does not make the playoffs, to me, I don't want to say a disaster of a season, but a failure of a season if you do not make a 12-team playoff next year. What else here? Just trying to go over everything that I wanted to go over. Oh, another thing too. This was the first time also, or not first time, but first time since 2013 when we won the Pinstripe Bowl, in Yankee Stadium. And then that great win over LSU in 2014 to beat LSU in the Music City Bowl. That team in 2014, that was a big win over LSU. Again, that was a sub-tiered bowl, but that propelled them for a 2015 season. And to my opinion, I've said this before, the most talented Brian Kelly team. However, we just, had they stayed healthy and had a competent defensive coordinator and not being Brian Van Gorder, that team, I think, would have competed for a national title. They went to the Fiesta Bowl. They are kind of outmanned by that. That was a pretty damn good OSU team coming off their own national title the previous season. But that propelled them for the next season. I think this 2024 team, I know that's not LSU. It wasn't a really close game like that LSU game was in the Music City Bowl. But I just think after today, I know this was not a great Oregon State team. However, with the players that barely played this year, to put a performance like that on the field today, that speaks volumes. And Steve Angeli, do not count this kid out. I've said it before today. Ever since that spring game, watching him he's a cool, collective dude. Let me tell you right now, he doesn't the only issue today, I forgot to mention too, he should have thrown the ball away a couple of times. He got sacked, I think 2 or 3 times. The delay of game calls, but pretty much his passes were on the money. He ran really good today too. I just can't say enough. Do not count this kid out right now. But I can't say enough. Great game from the Irish today. Great way to end the season 10-3. Sounds a lot better than 10-4. But thank you so much for joining me for episode 124. And as always, go Irish.